This is a pair of selvage denim reproduction jeans from 1936. They are really good quality, but you have to ignore the broken button here. Levi's sells their reproduction pair for $300, but Buck Mason sells their reproduction pair for $270. So Buck Mason is the deal, right? No. The jeans that I'm wearing are from Bronson, a domestic Chinese vintage U.S. military reproduction brand. One of the weirdest sentences I've probably ever said. They cost $90. You could get 3 of these for the pair of one Buck Mason. Same pant. Well, not same pant, obviously. It's the whole point of this video. The title of this video is not clickbait. Obviously, there is probably a little bit more nuance than whatever I've titled it, but it's not clickbait. It's something that is very interesting, a bit of a phenomenon, and it all has to do with the way you shop for clothing in the US versus the way you shop for clothing in China. Also, real quick disclaimer, I live in the US, so might be how you shop too if you live somewhere in Europe or anywhere else in the world. I just don't know. I've shopped in one Denmark mall in my entire life is awesome. But the way you shop for clothing and stuff like that in China oftentimes does lead to you're paying less, you're getting a higher quality. And that way of shopping is actually leaking into the US, and it might take over US shopping with the rise of companies that you probably heard a lot about. Shein, Temu, and interestingly enough, the TikTok shop. So the question is, what on earth is exactly happening? And to figure that out, I did a lot of research myself, obviously, but I also got in contact with the CEO of Bronson, Eason. And I asked him I basically pestered their customer service until Eason was like, dudes, what do you want to know? And boy, oh boy, did I get some answers. So that's that. Welcome to another Iron Snail production. Holly, crescendo the music, and title card. Like I said, I pestered the CEO, Eason, until he gave me some answers. I think there was a pretty significant language barrier, so I couldn't get a lot of questions answered just because, well, there are a lot of weird questions anyways, like how does China work? But I did get the biggest questions that I want answered. So let's break down why Bronson is actually so cheap. What is going on here? The easiest thing to say right away when you're talking about very cheap clothing is, oh, they probably have terrible labor practices. That's not always the case. It could be, but it's not always. There's some things that Bronson does right away that get you to a pretty low cost. You see it a lot of times with brands that make more basic clothing, and they make a lot of them, and they are direct to consumer. They're from the factory, and that's exactly what Bronson is doing. To actually a very high degree, I don't have pictures of the entire process, but they're knitting in-house, at least t-shirts, I'm assuming also sweaters, and they said they're weaving as well, so this denim, maybe their denim. Super easy peasy way to get the price down quickly because you are not marking up things all along the process. That's one thing. Second thing is, Eason said they just don't charge a lot. That's definitely a strategy. But then there is also the glaringly obvious thing, which is Bronson from its start is very good quality, but a lot of brands that are priced even lower are also very good quality. They just don't take design risks like Bronson does. I guess it's not technically a risk because it's vintage US military gear that they are reproducing in their own way. But the risk is that it's not an everyday style. These are high-waisted 1936 recreation jeans, the OG 107 pants, those go up like to my boobs. Huge niche style. Your dad is probably not going to want to wear OG 107 pants, especially if he fought in Vietnam, because those probably bring back terrible memories. But he's not going to want to wear those because it's very daring. Gap, Old Navy, other brands that you know, they could probably make a similar pant for a similar price. They just wouldn't because it's not going to sell like a just regular cut-off boring pair of chinos. And since the style of clothing they're making, the materials and stuff that they're using are not comparable to real fast fashion brands, you compare it to brands that are doing something similar, which oftentimes are top-tier Japanese US military reproduction brands, and those are very different products. Overall review of the sweater though, $80. Good deal. It's a scratchier wool yarn that's being used, and there's 20% acrylic, and there's a lot of, I think, anti-pilling finish on it, so I think the acrylic will cause the sweater overall to pill over time, but it does feel nice. Taylor said I looked handsome when I wore it. It is an $80 sweater though, and I think, unlike a lot of Bronson products, you will notice over time why this is $80 when you see how it ages and wears and breaks down. Okay, so that partially explains why Bronson is so cheap. The other thing is the thing I keep yammering on about. People don't shop the same way in China as they do in the US. That is a big proponent as to why Bronson has to be so cheap. I decided that I'm going to fake this advertisement. I'm going to act my way out of this one. I got sponsored by Thrive Market, a grocery store essentially for perfect people. All of their stuff is non-GMO, most of their stuff is organic, and they have over 1,000 banned ingredients that you would find every day at your grocery store, but they're no good for you. Thrive banned them. Problem is, they gave me this big box of healthy but tasty food, and I ate it all before the integration. The only things left are this floss, organic India Tulsi sleep tea that I got for Taylor, who I also call tea, and 6,000 calories calories worth of olive oil. If left to my own devices, I will eat trash every single day of my life. Current obsession right now, caramel popcorn. But what I like about Thrive is that I know the food is good for you and it does taste very good. I've never had this thing before. It's called a Poppy. And this is the best bar I've ever had. I'm a bar fiend. Deliciously Ella. That does sound like something a creepy person may say, but it's a really good bar. Go macro? You must mean go in my mouth. And I actually got these bars cheaper than my local grocery store. Bing. Taylor and I are often described by our friends as the busiest people they know. I think it's because of anxiety, but I'm not sure. Oftentimes Taylor and I really struggle to get groceries on time. We haven't had trash bags in 2 days. That is not a problem when we have something like Thrive that just auto sends us stuff that we have on our list that we need, that we go through every week. Bing, bang, boom. All done. Get this. I've been a vegetarian for like 7 years now. Thrive lets you sort by whatever ism you are. Veganism, vegetarianism, pescatarianism, allergic to nuts. So thank you very much to Thrive Market for sponsoring this video. While I was filming it, Taylor said, hey, we should really actually just shop here. And I said, that's a great, I'm gonna put that in the video. You can either click the link in the description or go to thrivemarket.com/theironsnail to receive 30% off your first order and a free gift worth up to $60 when you join Thrive Market today. Look at this, beaver bites everywhere. There's some right here. There's a pretty huge tree for the beavers. Got a lot of work. Well, I guess these are kind of old. Beaver bites, as far as the eye can see. Over there, all these pointed trees. Look at that. I shouldn't stand right under it, I guess. This, according to Bronson, is a lot 601 1969 model 3rd selvage denim jacket. And these are my pants I'm wearing today. 1936 model cowboy selvage denim jean. $90. This is certainly news to no one, but China is absolutely a manufacturing powerhouse. Factories aren't just competing with other factories saying we can make this cheaper for that brand. Factories are competing with the brands because people in China can just go directly to the factory and say, can you make that shirt instead of for $20, make it for 10? Factory's like, yeah, sure. In the US, if you're gonna try and get something from a factory, you probably need to order an absolute ton of it to get like wholesale prices, or there's a lot of hoops to go around. China, it's such a big thing. Tech companies came up with the idea of like, wait a minute, we can just kind of make online malls and get rid of that problem altogether. There's Taobao, Tmall, JD, Pinduoduo, and Douyin, which is TikTok in China. And in the US, we don't do that. All of our stuff is made in factories, obviously, but we put it in little cubbies, and those cubbies we call brands. And if you get something made and it doesn't have the Carhartt logo on it, even if it uses the same materials or if it's made in the same factory, we say that is fake. That is not real. There's probably something wrong with it. When on the other hand, if you're in a manufacturing powerhouse country, you're like, yeah, they're literally making, I can literally see the Carhartts coming out of the door. Carhartt's a bad, I don't know if they make stuff in China, but you know what I mean. And instead of saying, well, I trust that Michael, the Iron Snail, is going to give me a really good deal, make a really good product, and stand by his product, and give me a good warranty and everything like that. By the way, we are working on a t-shirt, codename The Cardinal. You don't necessarily say that. You say, well, I typed in t-shirt, I saw 10,000 people in the last month bought this t-shirt, and everybody gave it 5 stars, so I know it's probably good. And that t-shirt is competing with so many other people, they should have a good standard of quality, so you end up paying less for higher quality garments. That's what's going on in China. Probably thinking, wow, are we getting ripped off? In theory, yes, but also in theory, absolutely not, because there are major pros and cons of either one. In theory, there are some really good benefits of going through a brand to get your product because they should be able to support you more. Patagonia, really good example. Basically can bring anything into their shop and they'll repair it for you or replace it for you. That's a good example where you're like, oh yeah, I like Patagonia. Even though it costs a little bit more, I'm willing to pay for it. There's a few other bonuses that should theoretically come with the brand too. An important one for me is that brand story and heritage and everything like that should help keep old craft stuff alive. I'm wearing Russell Moccasin. Oh, this is the Iron Snail Russell Moccasin collaboration. Old world craftsmanship. Russell Moccasin, dead in the water if they didn't have that craftsmanship and that story and the brand and you're like, oh, that's cool, I like that. So that's a big one for me. Same with selvage denim. If it wasn't for Japan taking in selvage denim and saying like this is an art form and we're gonna make these recreation pieces and stuff like that, probably would be so obscure, there wouldn't be the community there is today around it. Oftentimes there's much more aggressive innovation, forward innovation, not just trying to make something cheaper or be constructed cheaper. Nike is never gonna let Adidas eat their running marathon lunch. And that is why you go from, which I love this Instagram picture, these early Nike running shoes or Adidas or something like that to the modern ones, which by the way, if you're a marathon runner, I could see why you're breaking world records because people used to just run on leather boards. Now you're running on like carved yoga blocks. It's also way easier to hold the brand accountable. If a brand is working with really unethical labor practices, Nike got in trouble in the 90s and 2000s, I think. Everybody knows it to this day. When I was a kid, everybody was talking about it with sneakers on the playground. But if it's just a random factory that you got on Taobao or something like that, it's forgotten. There's 800 other factories. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. Too many to track. And frankly, it's not going to get headlines, so it's not going to go crazy. Oh yeah, way better now. And then you do get a bunch of nice, but not necessarily necessary things, but you get to kind of pick what brand represents me, which one is me, which is this. You get a lot more colorful brand experience. Best example, Double RL. If you go see a Double RL store, it's like there's all these regular stores and then there's a cottage with flowing water. Like, it looks like this, and Ralph Lauren made that like around the cottage as a buying experience. That is absolutely insane. The problem is, as many people know, in the US, now we have these giant mega brands that literally make palaces for you to walk into. Like the Nike flagship in New York, insane. There's stuff like floating in the air. But you're not getting the other part of the deal. The bare thing that you came in for, the boot, the shoe, the shirt, the jacket, whatever it may be, it doesn't have that quality. Sometimes the warranty isn't there. It seems rushed, it seems cheap. The brand is bigger than the actual quality. And people hate that. And personally, I think we're just getting to the tipping point where brands have to make a change quickly. And the reason I'm saying that is because I don't know if you remember the entire dupe craze that happened a few years ago, where everybody was obsessed with what's the knockoff version, what's the cheapest version, why would I get the real Birkenstocks when I can get these ones for cheaper? That to me, huge red flag that your way of business is going by the wayside because you don't have something compelling enough for people to pay the higher price. You're missing out on something. You're not kind of running with the wolves here. And that's no good. That's good though. So going through factory and not brand, it does make sense for like just basics in general. But when you get in the weeds, there are some very, very big negatives. The first thing is obviously just there are systems like JD and TD Mall and Taobao and everything like that to kind of sort through things, but judging through monthly sales and then rating, not perfect. So you can't get scammed, you can't get ripped off, the picture might not be accurate, you might not get what you want. That's obviously, you see it with Temu and Shein all the time. Sometimes the garments have a lot of lead in them because of how they're being made and stuff like that. So those standards that you hold companies to go far and wide in different areas of different things. So that's a big risk. But also, manufacturing in 2025 is already a very brutal job and has been a very brutal job forever. But when you're racing to the absolute bottom, there's not a lot of accountability, factory, all competing like that. You get what you probably think, which is sometimes ethical nightmares in any way. It could be you have a really, really good cut and sew factory that you saw in some country somewhere, US included, anywhere. Everything looks fine, but then you say, where did you get this cotton from? And that's an issue, and that person may have not checked it or something like that. And having checks and balances on what is being made, where stuff is being from, who is doing it, costs money. And a lot of times these factories and stuff like that aren't paying for it. So now, the real question is, what about Bronson? And you may have noticed something glaring right away about Bronson that is not like anything we've talked about today. But overall, like I said, these jeans, the button popped off. That's my fault. That has happened on $400 pair of jeans for me too. I think it's just a numbers game. But from an ethical standpoint, I really like that Eason answered me. We chatted for a little bit. He sent me some pictures of their manufacturing. But when it gets to the nitty-gritty ethics, I don't know. I don't know. So I wish I could tell you the straight answer there, but I thoroughly don't know. But here's the thing. Remember I was saying in the beginning of this video, there is a massive shift happening in both the USA and China? Bronson's a brand. Okay, so the finale. There are obviously pros and cons of each method, but who makes the highest quality? What is the title? Is it true? Also, it's a new day. Could you tell? I'm not sure if my outfit would give it away, but new day and back with the Beaver Boys. Feels very comforting to be around so many precariously tilting trees. Quality and value are the center point focus of this video. So what method brings out the best of those two things? China's infrastructure, manufacturing, and everything has kind of matured past just raw output of goods a lot. So we can't factor them into the equation alone, but they do have a secret weapon. When you're looking at traditional clothing that doesn't require a ton of insane innovation, your best bet is probably in countries that are really pouring a lot of money into their manufacturing output. Bangladesh, Vietnam, Turkey, India, places like that. That's where you'll get your absolute lowest cost goods, and you can use really good materials, and there's a lot of great craftsmanship there as well. But on the other hand, when you're looking at absolutely insane bleeding edge innovation, coding stuff and certain things, and just pushing the boundaries of clothing and research and development in general, then that is the USA, Japan, South Korea, Italy. Italy actually is ballistic with their technologies, especially in sustainability. Those countries kind of dominate the research and development phase. But then there is China, who is kind of smack dab in the middle of both of those. China has the massive manufacturing power that we all know of, but it's no longer the absolute lowest price place to get things made. But at the same time, they have a technology infrastructure that allows people to get stuff from all these factories and stuff, like we just mentioned, at the lowest price possible, because they are courting the competition into these little boxes, and it's crazy aggressive. So that is why you can oftentimes get better value through sites like that, theoretically. Again, this is all general and theoretical, and also at the same time, also kind of outdated as of today. And as of like 10 years ago, it's still happening, but it's quickly changing because there's a huge shift happening right now. Bronson is, in case you're wondering, spanking good quality. I actually feel like I should give these pants more credit than I gave them earlier. These are the OG 107s, like I said, all the way up to my boobies, which are around my belly button. Pretty nutty quality, a really, really aggressive fit. I feel like I'm Daniel Simmons right now. But the point is, Bronson is a brand, because what's happening is, currently, the US is really embracing the no label. We just want better quality, so that's starting to explode, which, by the way, if you live in the US, one of the things that I think is changing is customers are demanding more quality. They're demanding to have stuff made domestically. Sometimes I think people get a little sticker shock, but there is some big movement happening. I don't work with a ton of manufacturers, but I do call a lot of them, I feel like, constantly, and they're all saying they are just getting absolutely swamped with work. One of our knitters actually said they can't even work with us because they're getting too many large orders. But at the same time, China has been getting very brand focused lately. There's a lot of demand for brands because I think that's just part of human life, to be like, well, I want the brand that best defines me and I want a great experience. So that is also growing, and now everybody's kind of eating each other's lunch. And that, you've probably already noticed, naturally now means you're going to see less made in China apparel, more made in Vietnam, Bangladesh, India, places that are really investing in just pure manufacturing output for the lowest price possible. It's just a massive big race that is constantly ever shifting. But at the same time, the beavers are still busily in the woods munching, although these ones are not. I hope they're alive. The mushrooms are still growing, and hikers are wondering if they're edible, and I'm still wearing pants in 90-degree weather. Okay, that's about it. See you next week. We talk about New Balance.